Hello, everyone. How are you? Hi, Jenny Machete, Jen in Georgia, Sassy. Good to see you. Thank you for being here to mod. Excuse me. Hello, Reserve Glitchin. All I need is Jesus. How are you all today? I got on a little bit earlier today than yesterday for sure. Sorry it was so late last night, but it's so good to see all of you. How was everyone's day today? We've made it to Thursday. Tomorrow is Friday. Hallelujah. I hope everyone's doing well. Hello, Sassy. Hello, hello. Hi, Granny to 13. How are you? How are you? It's good to see you all. Hard to believe. Hi, Stephen. Hi, Misbehaving. Lots been going on, right? So much has been going on. And hi, Cece. So much has been going on. And a lot of what I've been thinking about is, well, with the protests going on down at the courthouse, they are not related to Sebastian, but they are directed, hey, Nicey Marie, directed towards Sumner County Sheriff's Office, police corruption, and political corruption. And I shared a little bit last night about why the rapper, it's for a rapper. I think his name is Young Buck, who was arrested, and that's why they're peacefully protesting. But I think what's important to know is that in some of the comments I read and some of the things they said, they were going to be back today. And then there were other people who were joining in because of other things that, not just the rapper, that they feel are wrong right now in Sumner County. So that's been a peaceful protest. But the thing that I think is important is there are locals there now. There's locals, and I'm hoping they're there because I know the locals are starting to bubble up a little bit with their frustration. And I think that protest down there may be bringing a few of them out. And it's important. You know, we don't just tell the nation to say Sebastian's name, right? We need everyone to be saying it. And that's hi, Cece. So that's, you know, the important thing of it for me is this. Eyes are on it. Eyes have been on Sumner County for Sebastian. Well, not as many as we want, right? And so we, you know, hopefully a protest will, you know, spark some life. Other people come out and say, you know, we want to be spoken to. We want a little bit more, you know. Don't tell us anything that we don't need to know, but let us know you're thinking of it, him, us, right? It, the case. Hello, wise old lady. So, but a lot's been going on. It just seems boom, 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 boom. Don't forget, we're going to have a vigil this Saturday here on our channel. We're hosting it for Sebastian Rogers, 14 months missing, and all the missing children. We're going to take a moment, take a breath, get united, power up, and go out in force as Sebastian's army and all the children's army. Yes, Cece. You have elections coming up? Oh, are you local, Cece? That's what I was leading to. So the little bit of an outcry right now about, you know, we're not happy here. Eyes are going on it, right? We also have eyes on it for Sebastian's case. People are looking. There are elections coming up in December. The primaries, they put their registration in for the primaries. So, and that's for county commissioner seats, sheriff seat, mayor seat, among others. So that's important too. So okay. Yes. And that's kind of what they're talking about. They brought up judges, they brought up police force, they brought up elected officials, and they just said that they historically can track it. I'm using the word historically, but that they can track a pattern, allegedly is what the case is. So, hello, true crime lover Marley. How are you? Yes, Cece, I'm so curious. He was there at the command post day 3. Now, a DA, I remember, and I do have a few questions some of you have asked me about No Body, No Crime, and I am putting together a little presentation about that. And just to let you know what that means, yes, you can absolutely prosecute without locating a person. I'm going to say locating. For instance, Harmony Montgomery's father is in prison for the rest of his life. No one reported Harmony missing. Her mother was trying to get a hold of her. And he is behind bars for the rest of his life and still won't tell where Harmony is. They still have not found Harmony. The West boys, Orrin and Orson, they were adopted. And both parents, adoptive parents, are behind bars for the rest of their lives. The Wests, Jacqueline and Trezell, they have never found the boys. But the DA said, we are confident that they are no longer with us. And that's what it is. You have to be able to prove confidence, surety, that that person is no longer with us. And so we don't have, you just really have to think about that. In order to prosecute a crime like that, you have to be able, without locating someone, you have to be able to prove that person is no longer with us. And if you don't have that, which we don't, then we are looking in both directions, rescue and recovery, right? Email me, Cece. Please email me. primetimebuzz@gmail.com, please. primetimebuzz@gmail.com. So what I thought we were going to do today is, because I'm on here, it's not so late at night like it was last night. I just wanted to be with y'all, and it was a little later, and I thought, you know what, I'm just coming on anyway. So I hope y'all got to see the live from yesterday if you didn't make it late last night. And I did put out a video yesterday about Summer Wells, and then a short. Don't miss the short I put out yesterday. I was absolutely dumbfounded. I came across it, and it is a message from a content creator who covers the Summer Wells case, and her message was to At Night and Nick, and it was just downright shocking. The language, unbelievable. So I put it in the short for you all. Sorry there wasn't a cute thumbnail. I wasn't home, and so I just wanted to get that out to you. I later on made the cute thumbnail, but I don't know how to attach it now. But anyway, go watch it. It's great. Summer, also, there's a little more background on Summer Wells, some of the things being said right now. But tonight we are talking about Sebastian Rogers. Sebastian Rogers will be missing. Was reported missing 14 months ago this Saturday. We will be gathering as a community to unify, to take a breath, to remember it's about the kids. It's not about us, right? It's not about our feelings. It's not about who we like, who we dislike. And it's becoming that. And it's just, it is. And I think we all know we've had quite a week, right? About things like that. It would just be really nice if we were all one unified community who could all be working together. And I think as we look through these interviews, because we're going to watch, credit to Jen Coff and Dapper Break the Case. Wonderful, I say it every time. Wonderful, wonderful asset to our community. I really rely on her insight, her perspective. She has over 25 years with the FBI. She is a correspondent for News Nation. I believe she still does like tactical training. instruction, and arms training. Don't hold me to that one. Just a wonderful person, very knowledgeable. And unlike myself, I come to you with a passion for true crime, with a passion to help victims, but I don't have that expertise of having in FBI background or a law enforcement background or a legal background for that matter. But Jen brings that to our community, as do many other retired homicide officers, detectives, investigators. Jen is my go-to. I love listening to her. She works closely with the team. Dog, Nick, has worked with them prior to the Sebastian Rogers case and did want them brought in. Was hoping they would come in before they even came in. She thought of them because she had worked with Nick recently on a case right before that. So I think that we have a strong team standing beside Seth. You are part of that team. You are Sebastian's army. We're going to gather Saturday, 14 months, and take a moment. Remember what's important. Talk about Sebastian a little bit. And then we are going to talk about many of the missing children. Some of the things that are important to those of us, maybe the preventative and what parents can do right now as well. What video? Oh, you watched my video? Oh, thank you, Sassy. Are you talking about my video, Sassy? Hi, Robin. Hello. Hi, Catherine B. So we are going to start with Jen Coff because she kind of wraps it up from beginning to now. And I want to do that because I think each time CP, KP have interviewed, they have left little breadcrumbs. Breadcrumbs that could lead us, in my opinion, to Sebastian. But we're overlooking something. There's that piece missing. And I also think that we can study and maybe come across that piece. But I want to begin with Jen Coff, this video. And then what we're going to do is we are going to go to the Dateline. And I'm not going to the first one first. We're going to go to the Dateline interview. Then the 1 year with KP. Then we are going to go to the 1 year with the dynamic duo, KP and CP. But we're going to watch that with Deception Detective. Okay? And if we have time, we're then going to go over to interview 1. Reason being is, I want us, if you're a note taker, start taking notes. I know many have said, I wish I had started taking notes in the beginning. Well, here we go. Because we're going to start taking notes. I am, for sure, again. And I've been working on a database that isn't finished, but I am going to start taking fresh notes, writing it down. I'm in one notebook right here, and then I'll put it into a database and we'll have that information. But I need your help when we listen to the interviews to tell me what did they omit in this one and what was changed or added. That's kind of where I need to go. Those are the breadcrumbs, I think. And those little golden nuggets of things that come out that are so obviously something we need to look at, in my opinion. Don't ever speak about my truck. The truck, for sure, in my opinion. I think the Brinks fan, I do, because a big deal was made of that, too. We knew to look at him not being in town. Wasn't, just so normal, in my opinion. No one asked him not to discuss it. Law enforcement didn't ask him not to discuss it. It was a runaway child. Why would they tell the stepfather, don't disclose where you were? And we found out that law enforcement indeed said they cannot tell people what to say and not say. Also, just a reminder, the first 9 days, was day 8 before the first interview came out. But more importantly, they weren't out searching. I'm just going to say that right now. They were not out searching. They didn't attend the vigils, and I'm talking about CP and KP, but they also weren't out interviewing, okay? They did not want that. One of the first things and I believe Mr. and Mrs. E said that one of the first things they learned about the case was that the parents, stepmom or stepdad and mom, did not want their last name released. That is very rare. That was like their first out of the gate, and that's rare because you're usually not thinking of you're thinking outward. You're not thinking, I don't want my name out there. You're saying, get his name out. You're doing whatever you can. You are not focused on yourself. So that was very, very rare. So I think that's something, if you've never written it down, I recommend writing that down. There were 2 other things that they had said were the first 3 things they had learned, and I'll have to go back to my notes and look. But thanks so much for being here. I truly appreciate it. I know there's so many channels to go to, so many places to be, and I really appreciate it when you choose me, because I love spending my evenings with you. Y'all are insightful, you're drama free, and I really appreciate that we can brainstorm. That's why I'm going to start studying this again and looking for those nuggets, writing them down, the breadcrumbs. And you all are so good at catching things, we'll do it together. Because I think that's what's going to lead us to Sebastian and to the people who did this to Sebastian. Because we know Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers did not walk out of his home February 25th to the 6th, 26th, between midnight and 6 a.m. There is no scent. There is no footage. There are no eyewitnesses. Nothing. And in this day and age, we can't leave our home without people picking up their phone and recording. Anything happens, right? Or they see anything odd. And people have cameras on their houses, their dash cams, driving. People were checking their dash cams for them because an Amber Alert went out. Nothing, no one that we know of. But I will tell you, what I do know is, and I am not going to give up my sources, but I've told you this before, I'm just repeating it. We know that they knew very early on, within the first day or so, that a car pulled up into the neighborhood around 3 a.m. I think they said 3:10 a.m. It was a dark 4-door sedan. They also knew that a stranger hadn't crept in to the community and taken Sebastian, or we would have, CC, the community, everyone who lives locally, would have been alerted. They were not. So when they're not alerted to be careful, just, what do they call it when they want you to stay in the house? I can't think of it. But when they ask you to stay put, someone's on the loose right now kind of thing, they didn't do that. And that's why there's no description, in my opinion, on the Amber Alert. Okay? So we have a child with no scent. In this day and age, everyone with dash cams, cameras on their homes, their phones, all of the above. And not a single image caught of Sebastian outside of his home, leaving, walking somewhere, at a business, anywhere, nowhere. Zero footage in this day and age, with all the capability for anyone who drove by him could have had a dash cam, a phone, recording, anything. Nothing. Okay, and it's very odd. And this was interesting, because KP even said he took out the trash, and this was in her Dateline interview, and we're going to start there, that Sebastian took out the trash, and FBI cleaned up. You could just see an image, like an image moving in the dark. But KP said FBI took it, cleaned that up, and you can clearly see that it's Sebastian with his mannerisms, his run. That's what she said. So, if that is indeed accurate, I'm considering my source, my opinion, because I've seen discrepancies. If that indeed is accurate, then if Sebastian Rogers went out that front door, there would have been some sort of a moving image that was detected that they would have cleaned up, been able to clean up, as KP said, and clearly determine that it was Sebastian. Just like she said happened with the trash. So she said it is Sebastian with that trash, and the FBI has verified it by cleaning up that image moving. So if that's the case, then there is no way, in my opinion, another no way, that Sebastian Rogers walked out that front door, or any door caught on image by himself, because he would have, just like taking out the trash, it would have looked like a dark moving image the FBI could have cleaned up clearly, just like KP said, and seen it was Sebastian. That did not happen. So he didn't go out that front. There's no scent, so he didn't walk out, which means he was carried, he was driven. In my opinion, he was driven with the 3 a.m. car. In my opinion, he was carried out with the images we saw in the backyard, that video, those images, because I believe that to be true. Because I believe that from the command post chatter is exactly how they knew a stranger hadn't taken him, and that he didn't leave voluntarily, that he didn't run away. The footage, the flashlights, the images that look like two individuals carrying someone, and the 3 a.m. car. That's how they knew. That's why the community wasn't alerted for safety. That yes, they should have said something to them. But in my opinion, that's why. And that's why there was not a description on the Amber Alert. They knew he was taken, but they didn't need the nation to search for the person or people who took him, in my opinion. That's my opinion. Maybe they don't have a description of anyone. But in that footage we saw, and they had footage at the command post, in that footage we saw, we clearly saw hairlines and a little foot, in my opinion. So different things when we looked at it. So he didn't walk out that front door, or just like with the trash, KP kind of caught it, kind of gave us a little golden nugget there again. Okay, if indeed the FBI cleaned it up and could tell it was Sebastian in the dark of night, then they would have done it, could have seen him leaving the front of the house, leaving, and they would have done the same. I believe he was carried out, taken to that car, and I also believe that, remember we studied the citywide management system, what's it called? I want to say FUSIS. They have license plate readers. So wherever that car went, and Hendersonville is one of the ones who took other cities in the area and counties under their wing, because they were already advanced in it, in the system. So they were training and helping others. So we know Hendersonville was good to go and up and running. So they have those license plates if there were plates, or their plates, or they covered, right? So there's a lot of things to think about, but I think one big nugget is that she said that footage by the FBI was cleaned up and they could see it was Sebastian. So that tells us they would have seen a moving figure if he had went out the front of that home, and they did not. Okay. And they are not looking for a stranger, because they would have let the community know to lock down, to be safe, while they are searching for someone at large. So let's go ahead and start with where we are now. I love Jen's perspective. I know many of you are upset when Jen says that it's going cold. Okay, we're not going to let that happen. Seth isn't going to let that happen. Right now, Seth is confident in where things are going. There's a lot of evidence, and we went over, remember, in 2 or 3 lives in a row. We'll add to it because there's more to it now, of all the different, not all of it, we hadn't even finished it, the different evidence, and there was a lot already that they had or could have. So there's evidence there. And as long as the investigative efforts, like forensic efforts inside the home, were done, and we know they went back and they were doing some videography and stuff of the backyard, 3D, correct? So they did that kind of stuff. They did reenactments, but did they treat it like an investigation, like a crime, like you're supposed to? 2 things. You're searching for a child, and you also have someone else investigating it like it's a crime. That's what they're supposed to be doing. And we have to, I hope that was done. Because that's really going to play whether or not they will have a case. That's going to be a foundation for their circumstantial evidence. So they need that. Circumstantial is that DNA, the fingerprints, the luminol, the digital evidence, all of it. And Seth said they waited 2 weeks to go get the digital items from the PFOOTs. So that's concerning. A lot can be done in 2 weeks. For instance, an Apple Watch was lost, I heard. Yep, you heard it. She found it, bought a new one in June or something. But Apple Watch was lost, the one on her arm at the Texas Roadhouse. You cannot give people time to think of all those little details. They need to go in. They should have gone in like it was a crime. So let's get started. She's going to take us all the way to here. We're not going to let it go cold. We are standing down with Seth because he has an open communication with law enforcement. And that is very important. If there ever comes a time where it goes cold and Seth needs anything more or different from us, we are Sebastian's army and we will be here, okay? So he's leading this terrible search that he didn't choose to ever lead. And we are his army. So let's go ahead and start. Credit to Jen Coff. And if it gets too late, we can stop. But I just planned kind of a nice little evening for the family to gather. It's good family time. And I thought we could watch this together as a family. Don't forget, America's Most Wanted is coming up, I believe, Monday. We will watch it as a family. We probably won't watch it as it streams, but we'll watch it after as a family and discuss it. Thank you all for being here, and let's get started.
True crimers, let's start it again. Apologies. Welcome to Break the Case. I wanted to, first of all, thank everyone for being here. It's been about several weeks, actually, since we've highlighted Sebastian Rogers. The last time we talked about the difference between a cold case and a case that's still being actively worked from the law enforcement perspective. This case definitely, I think, is moving toward from lukewarm to being colder. And I say that because, as I mentioned last time, often law enforcement may know the direction they're going, but they just might not have the facts in evidence that they need to proceed with perhaps the direction they think the case should go. I think this could fall into that category. But nevertheless, we're going to talk about this case because we're going to do exactly what we do in law enforcement. And that is, at a certain point, you get together, you reconvene, and you go over facts known. Why? Because many people in the audience have followed this case so closely. Yes, you know it inside and out. But have you forgotten some details? Have you maybe not known a particular detail? When I went to case briefings to kind of catch people up, whether it was missing child, whether it was on a bank robbery ring, whether it was on an organized crime case, I always figured if I could get one tool to put in my tool belt, something I didn't know, some nugget, that nugget maybe could become helpful for me as I was investigating. It's kind of interesting because early on, I don't know if you know this, but early on, his father, his mother, everyone who talked about him said, listen, high functioning, very smart. His teachers said the same thing, extremely funny, witty, a kind of a jokester, a prankster, which I always say that people who are funny, they're on another level of intelligence. They just can take something and be so quippy and quick-witted. And that's how Sebastian was. His teachers say he was very, very intelligent. And we're going to touch back on that a little bit later, because this comes up later, and I want to know what y'all think about this. On February 25th, before Sebastian Rogers went missing, Sebastian Rogers had quite the day. Katie Proudfoot, who is his biological mother, and he were at home in Hendersonville, and they had a full-filled day, which started with spaghetti pancakes. Never had them, don't think I want to have them, but apparently Sebastian Rogers really likes spaghetti pancakes. And Katie Proudfoot actually bragged about her doing this on a Facebook post, very proud of her spaghetti pancakes. And from there, they went to BJ's Wholesale Club, where she talks about the fact that he had a colossal popcorn. And the popcorn, I guess, was one of Sebastian's favorites. That's what we're told. Then they went to a very specific bowling alley called the Strike and Spare in Hendersonville. It's like a bowling alley game place. And just really kind of I think for anybody, a pretty fun-filled day. I've always wondered if this was Sebastian's normal Saturday, if it was always packed full of events and his favorite things, or if this was a unique Saturday. That evening at about 6:30, they were at the wonderful Roadhouse restaurant. It's actually kind of one of my favorite, Texas Roadhouse. They had dinner there. And after they returned from dinner at the Texas Roadhouse, most of us have now seen that film footage. We have a lot of footage in this case that has been leaked. And I think it's been very helpful to a lot of us to understand the dynamic in terms of the relationship between Katie and between Sebastian, at least what we can capture in the glimpses of the videos that we see, right? In the Texas Roadhouse, we see Sebastian eating, loving his food, gobbling it down. We see Katie basically the entire time on her cell phone. We see a couple of photos taken of Sebastian. We see a lot of looking around. Certainly, it was funny. If I had to sum it up, I would say that is how my teenage kids act oftentimes until I tell them to put their phone up when we're out to eat. Just very distracted and doing other things. So anyway, we got to see a glimpse of that night. They went home, and it's been reported that about 8 o'clock, Sebastian Rogers took out the trash. That is what has been reported. At about 9 o'clock, Sebastian went to bed. And at about 10:30 was the last his mother heard of him, because she heard a big thud. Remember, this is the situation where there's kind of been varying stories from Katie. And I'm just saying that because it's fact. First it was a noise. The time was a little off, 10 o'clock, 10:30. Then it was a thud. What she said to him changed. At one point it was, be quiet in there, get to bed. At another point it was, hey, bud, time for bed. It's unclear to me exactly the communication that took place, but according to Katie, that's the last she heard out of Sebastian and Sebastian's room. She did not go in. She never said she went in, so that has stayed very the same. She said she did not go into the room. She said she went to bed at about midnight, and at 6 that morning, when she woke up, Sebastian was not in his bed. She then, as she explains it, sort of frantically started looking around the house, frantically gets in her car, drives around the neighborhood, goes all the way to the school, kind of frantically doing this. At some point, she calls Chris Proudfoot, who she says is away at a construction site, and they make the decision to not call 911, but they call the sheriff's office directly to make a report about Sebastian missing. Now, I'm going to just talk about that from 2 angles. Okay. From one angle, in other words, the decision not to call 911, to directly call the sheriff's office. I will say, from personal experience, that depending on where you live, I have called 911 and been ferreted around while they're sort of figuring out where they are, where the 911 that should handle it, the police station that should handle it. I don't know if that's happened to you. It's personally handled or happened to me. Why does that happen? I think depending on how rural you are versus if you're in a town, that can happen. And we know the Proudfoots were more on the rural side. And perhaps, and again, I know about CP's possible connection to law enforcement and so on, but I am just saying that could be a possibility if he knew there were issues from where they lived with that connection issue. The other flip side of that is something that actually just happened recently, where somebody I know very well called me and said, listen, I need some advice. I literally am listening to a serious domestic violence situation. I can hear what's happening. I can hear things being thrown. I can hear furniture being hit. I am very concerned about the danger of that somebody could be in, but I do not want to. I want to be anonymous because just in case they think it could be me, I don't want them to think it's me. I said, listen, you've got to act. I said, don't call 911. Call the non-emergency, call the direct number. If you want to remain anonymous, say you want to remain anonymous, and tell them the details of what is happening. If they ask you how you know, just say, I know, and there needs to be a wellness check. And that can be the end of it. People in citizenry should not be concerned about ramifications of reporting, because they should be allowed to say things anonymously. So I think a lot of people know this, right? If you call 911, everything is recorded, your number is recorded, the time, the length of the conversation, everything. If you call into the non-emergency number, that all is not going to be recorded.
Hi. I just want to comment on a few things from Jen's insights. She's so good. Just a couple of things I want to point out that I think of is, for instance, the interviews Nina Drew has up there on her comment for Jen, CP, KP, living their lives, lunching with YouTubers, CP calling into game shows, cursing female YouTubers is just awful. I agree. However, they are evidence. And I will say that and say it and say it. In my opinion, CP and KP, and every time they open their mouth, is evidence. The billboard explosion, unbelievable behavior over billboards, right? But what I want to say is Jen's correct. You know, there could be a reason. It could be that CP, because CP made the decision to call. We know he makes the decisions. In my opinion, as far as that went, he's, in my opinion, the bully of the narrative. Okay, in my opinion. But two things could happen. He either chose to call someone he knew, because there was that 30-minute lapse, and they called in, you know, to the dispatch together to report it at 6:33, not 6:03, like originally reported, to avoid it being recorded. Or CP made the decision to be as expeditious as possible because Sebastian's well-being is his top priority. Those are the two things laid in front of me. Is he going straight to the sheriff because he knows that is the quickest way to get help for Sebastian because he's worried? Or is he worrying about himself and the call being recorded? Now, I wouldn't have been able to answer that 14 months ago, but here we are 14 months now, and from my observations and patterns that I've seen him more focused on himself. Otherwise, I don't know why the billboards bother him, and not Sebastian's well-being. So I don't see him making a call to the sheriff to be expeditious for Sebastian because he knew it would be quicker for him. I've never seen care for Sebastian. I've never seen concern, in my opinion. It bothers me that he still talks about things like locking his phone down and things like that. I mean, the child, you haven't seen him for 14 months. Is there not an amazing memory you can pull? A tender moment. So I can't go that way. I go, he didn't want to be recorded because I have not seen him do anything expeditious for Sebastian. Even Seth said that first day, took an hour to get him to go with him to look somewhere, and Seth didn't know the area. Now, if your stepchild's just missing, you wouldn't drag your feet for an hour, in my opinion, if you were expeditious and worried about their well-being. Just my 2 cents in there. I always want y'all to make your own opinions. We're listening to Jen Coff and Daffer wrap up the case from beginning to now, and then we are going to go back and start studying all the pieces and find the breadcrumbs, the nuggets that might be those revealing pieces that we indeed have missed.
You know, they're going to ask you, who are you? There's going to be certainly some record that is made, but it's not like a 911 call. So I'm just offering up those 2 scenarios for you all to consider. Was Chris Proudfoot, did he do that purposefully to evade a record he didn't want made?
Sorry, one more thing, and we have to remember right off the kick, they did not want their name out there. So it kind of ties with not wanting to be recorded, not wanting your name out there. Who are they thinking about? Themselves. If they were expeditious about the well-being, in my opinion, they wouldn't have cared about being recorded. They would have called right to 911. He would have jumped in the car, started heading home, but none of that went down, in my opinion.
Or did he not want to experience the frustration that can happen when you call 911 and you get shuffled around? Did he know about that? Really curious what everybody thinks. So we'll have to talk about that at the end. If some people will put some comments up, I would love to hear what you have to say about that. Nevertheless, they notify law enforcement. Law enforcement descends into the neighborhood in large force. I mean, most of us have seen the footage of their BWCs, body-worn cameras, going around looking for him. Most of us have seen the dog footage. I am just going to wrap up in this regard and say 5 dogs, no hits on Sebastian's scent outside the house That is what we know. That's what's been told to us from a law enforcement standpoint. Law enforcement has also made it clear they have not seen Sebastian Rogers on video. They haven't seen camera footage of him. He has, for all intents and purposes, disappeared in terms of anyone seeing him at any point after the 25th. You might remember for months, it seemed, until I truly believe the social media community, all of us here, everyone who supports finding Sebastian started just clamoring about the situation with the date. What date was he truly last seen? Was it February 25th or was it February 26th? Because all of us were irritated at seeing the 26th, but yet them saying there was no sighting and the last person to see him was Katie. Law enforcement, thankfully, and when I saw the FBI poster change, I was so grateful that they just basically acknowledged, and then law enforcement acknowledged it was a mistake. I see it as a big mistake. I really do. I think you should have your paperwork done appropriately. I never fault law enforcement for their heart and their effort and everything they do to try to help missing people for the most part, certainly in this case. But I will never understand several of the issues in terms of seemingly, I don't know if I want to use exactly the word incompetence, but just faux pas that are made, right? The date is a big one to me. That's not just your average, oh, I got it wrong on an average mistake that didn't mean something, because the day somebody is missing is important to everybody looking for him and everyone involved in the case. You got to know when the last time he was really seen, and a day does make a big difference. So that was fixed. Another one of the concerns I had was just the information about when law enforcement picked up video footage. I really had a huge problem with this too. When did they exactly pick up the video footage from across the street? It's been relayed to us that neighbor had to actually call law enforcement and say, listen, my DVR, my recording device is going to record over itself. So what I'd like to do is
Sebastian Rogers, he's only 15 years old.
I'm going to play that later. So what I'd like to understand is, why wasn't all video footage collected straight away, at least after the Amber Alert was issued? But let me stay chronological for everybody. On 2/26, I keep saying March. The endangered child alert happened at 11/17. 11/17. Now, some would ask, why wasn't there an Amber Alert right away? Initially, this isn't that rare that you would want to put up an endangered child alert. You're still not sure. Remember, this is just the day he's reported, right? You're still not sure. Did he run away? Did he walk away? Is he hiding somewhere? So you've really just begun your investigative efforts. And when you say an Amber Alert, for people in law enforcement, and I think the general public knows, that equates to criminal activity. That equates to somebody taking the child. That does not equate to somebody lost, somebody wandering around. That equates to there being criminal activity afoot.
And I do want to address that, because we have talked about that on our channel, that in Tennessee, the agency in charge needs to confirm to TBI that the child was unlawfully taken. It is not due to disability. Okay? So I just want to say that again. It is because the child is taken. That is when TBI sounds the alert. And they're worried about them being endangered. That's an and. But they have to be able to confirm that they were taken. Now I ask you, on February 26th and early 27th, what would they have had to confirm that Sebastian was taken? In my opinion, it would be that footage we talked about. The 3 a.m. car, the carried through the backyards, the flashlights. That's my opinion. You think about it. What could it be that early on that they could confirm that he was unlawfully taken? And I'm glad she cleared that up too, because I have a lot of people who say, but Jay, I don't think it's because it's a crime for an Amber Alert. It is. It is. And we're learning that through these cases, and especially through Sebastian's case, I learned unlawfully kidnapped for Tennessee. Every state has their own criteria. We learned so much from all these little pieces, and that's what I'm saying. Going back, maybe we can find those breadcrumbs that we need, or that nugget that just lights it all up for us.
So in saying that, I don't want to digress from 226. I want to make sure I get all the details here. He had no Nintendo. He did not have his shoes on. I've still never really heard whether he had socks on or was barefoot. But nevertheless, Katie Proudfoot says all his shoes were accounted for. And from what we've learned, and we've learned a lot since, this seems like a child that had very minimal belongings. We know now, I've heard it with my own ears, that Chris Proudfoot threw away his belongings once because he didn't appropriately clean up his room to the satisfaction of Chris Proudfoot. So he loaded up his stuff and he got rid of it. So we know that. So it seems like perhaps he had minimal items, especially, I tell you, it'd be hard for me. I have a child almost the exact same age as Sebastian within just months. And my child kind of has a lot of shoes. I don't know if I'd be able to 100%. I know the two he mostly likes to wear, but I don't think I could definitely say or account for all of his shoes because he probably has 10 to 15 pairs of shoes. But it would seem from what we know that Sebastian really had the most minimal of belongings. And Katie Proudfoot was extremely adamant that he left without shoes. Now, I know I'm from the South and a warm weather client, but for a child to leave in a sweatshirt and these thin black, thin layered Nike type or Adidas type sweatpants with stripes and no shoes at night, it was cold. So, some people have argued, he could have been fine out there. He really couldn't have, not for an extended amount of time. And law enforcement even said they were worried about that. There was more cold weather coming in. They were worried about the cold. I know some people have tried to say, no, it was cold and he was not dressed appropriately for the cold night. I just think that's important because, again, we are not talking about somebody at the low end of the spectrum. We're talking about somebody smart. Why didn't they take their Switch, which was their favorite device, according to parents? Why didn't they take a coat, which most people would know if you're going into cold weather, you need to take a coat. Why wouldn't you take your cell phone, especially if you thought you were going to be away for an extended period of time, either running away or meeting somebody? So I have found that all very interesting and detailed. Moving on to the 27th. At 3:25 p.m., an Amber Alert was finally issued. I shouldn't say finally, because again, law enforcement is wrapped up in a lot, and they need to be able to say and justify. There's this paperwork you have to fill out when you do an Amber Alert. You literally have these form and you fill it out, and then they possibly had to do other forms administratively. I know if I were doing it on behalf of the Bureau, I had to do my internal Bureau work and then also my Amber Alert Bureau work. So, Amber Alert work to send in. So this isn't something that is just, oh, I think I'm going to press a button and we're going to have an Amber Alert. It involves being able to justify and say this individual has essentially been taken. And that's the whole purpose of it. So I want everybody to know that at 3:25, the Amber Alert came in. Now, remember, they're still searching for him. There's 200 officers, 200 plus officers out there. They're using every method and means possible to find Sebastian. They're even playing Eye of the Tiger, which was one of his favorite songs. They're blaring that. They're trying to get his attention. This was something that truly, they spent huge amounts of manpower trying to find him in the early days. All right, moving on to the 28th. On the 28th, and this is really important, I think, the public is told, so now we're really into, the 26th has gone by, 27th has gone by, so we're into two and a half days or more. Law enforcement advises the media and advises the public that the Proudfoots are not going to be talking. Now, they do say, listen, media, you can do what you want. We're not going to restrict you. You can talk to them, but they have informed us that they don't want to go public. Now, it's hard to explain how rare that is with a missing child situation. I always reference the Petitos and the Schmidts, Gabby Petito's parents. Yes, they went right to the media. Yes, they never wanted to hold back. They absolutely wanted to appeal anybody who had seen her, anybody at all, and it paid off. Look, we have the Bethunes, they ended up seeing the white van just in passing. They happened to remember it. Just like what we're doing now, exposing details, exposing what happened, keeping the name and face and details in the public forum can mean results. And I'm just saying, as law enforcement, I always encouraged that. Listen, you have a missing person, get into the public eye, get into your local media, national media, social media. You must start appealing, because it's a person multiplier. So now you don't just have law enforcement looking or a small amount of people looking, you have everybody looking. Now, a month ago, Katie Proudfoot gave her last interview, and actually, usually she was just sort of around, and Chris Proudfoot made most of the comments. But in this one, she actually made many comments. And one of the things she said, which I actually wasn't surprised about, but one of the most important points I want to drive home, is that she said she couldn't believe how many people still have no idea about Sebastian Rogers. They don't know his name. They don't know what anybody's talking about. She said the flyers that they put up had been torn down. So this is a point that I'm going to drive home now. And then at the end, for all of you that think, because it's so important to us in the true crime community that people know about Sebastian Rogers, No, people have forgotten. People don't know. I brought it up to so many people. I have friends that always go to Tennessee. Have you ever heard of him? No. Another tennis player I play with, she has a place in Tennessee, Gatlinburg. And I said, hey, have you ever heard? Nope. I have no idea what you're talking about. So it's just imperative that we keep his name and face and facts out there. So I just wanted to reiterate that. Even Katie Proudfoot was surprised how few people knew. On 2/29, another press conference, and no sightings, and the pond was drained. I have that on my notes. Yep, I have it the 29th. No sightings, and the pond was drained. What pond are we talking about? We're talking about a retention pond that was at a construction site that was very near the home. Now, the dogs did follow a scent. All we know is it was a human scent. It wasn't specifically Sebastian's scent to the construction site. And one of the dogs actually went into the pond. Again, this reserve pond was reservoir, I would call it more. It was very shallow. And you know, you could argue it didn't even need to be drained, but it was certainly smart to drain it. Every time I think of a case like this, I think of Caleb Harris. For those of you who followed the Caleb Harris case, right? He ended up literally in the sewer system in pieces. And, you know, I've always wondered, where did he initially, in my opinion, get put into that system where he finally disintegrated and was ultimately found months and months later. So it was important for them to drain it just to make sure he wasn't there. I also wanted to bring up early on that I did not say that law enforcement let everybody know you need to search your properties, you need to look everywhere, you need to look in your crawl spaces. They really did communicate that to people in the area. So the community was actively looking as well as law enforcement. All right. On 3/2, March 2nd, still no sightings are reported, nothing, still big goose egg, and a $3,500 reward was offered. I believe it was anonymously offered, but there was one offered and it was made public that there was now a reward that was offered. I will say this. Just why we're on rewards, and we're going to go back to rewards, but just while I'm on it, did anybody find it odd? Like when you look at Seth, he's just making it, scraping by. He's a jailer essentially. Anybody find it odd that the Proudfoots had enough money to pay $15,000 to a private eye, but didn't put up money for a reward? Did anybody, when we learned that straight out of the mouths of the parties involved, anybody find that like a little jaw dropping? I did. I would mortgage my home if my child went missing. I would say, listen, anything I have is yours, because nothing monetary is worth a child. You can earn it back. I don't know. Just a thought. All right. Moving on. March 3rd. Things changed. And the Proudfoots decided to speak. And they spoke to a YouTuber, a creator named Duchess. And there were some new things that were said that I took note of. For instance, they said words to the effect that Sebastian's mind or mental capability were behind his years. I thought he was highly functioning. I thought he was ultra smart. I mean, why are the teachers saying this? Why is law enforcement saying this? Why is Seth saying that? Why did Katie and Chris say that? Why is Katie saying that now? And then this was reported. Why was it reported as an example? I want to get these specific about him not understanding money, about him never riding a bus, things along this line. I found this odd because it seemed to paint a different picture from what we knew. And I'm not saying somebody can't be really intelligent, but not worldly. And maybe that's what they meant, giving them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe that's what they're saying. Listen, no common sense, but very smart. I'm not exactly sure, but I just thought that was mixed messaging. And I was also very surprised that of all the places you're going to go to, and nothing against Duchess, I'm just saying to her creator, any creator, why aren't you going to the media that, 5 o'clock news, 8 o'clock news, 10 o'clock news? Why aren't you getting on those local news channels? And you might say, well, maybe the Proudfoots didn't know to do that, right? Law enforcement told them. I guarantee it. This is from Playbook 101 when a child goes missing. And what do you tell the parents? You tell the parents, reach out to the media, get your son's face out there, get his name out there, talk about him, what he likes to do, what he looks like, show pictures, appeal to the media, and appeal to the people in the public. That wasn't done. It's done later. All right. On March 3rd, there were some other things that happened. That was the big day that law enforcement said, look, we are scaling back. It always happens in every investigation. Why does it happen? Because it's simple. It's manpower. It's so manpower intensive to have these investigations. And so you cannot sustain these types of searches forever. And that's why I thought it was really important that groups like the Cajun Navy and the Uvalde group and volunteers, people started pouring in and wanted to help, because quite frankly, law enforcement just cannot do it on their own. So they curtail back, but other people are still searching. But law enforcement on the 7th, March 7th, they searched the landfill. Now, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I am telling you, a landfill search is not normal. I know they say, oh, no specific information, we're just checking our boxes. No, you have to do a search warrant. You have to present to a judge probable cause. He has to approve that there's probable cause. And you have to use that to support going in. We're all free from searches and seizures from the government unless there's probable cause to believe there's proof of some criminal of the crime being committed, some evidence that would be there. So this will always be a big sticking point. Just looking at two factors so far, whether this is criminal or not, because it still drives me crazy. Anybody would think this is a criminal. First of all, you have Amber Alert, which indicates a child who has been abducted, taken against their will. Second, you have a search of a landfill. I bring you back to Quentin Simon. Quentin Simon's mother, Leilani, threw Quentin in a dumpster, and it was caught on tape, at least the bag, right? It was believed she did that, which she did. She's convicted. Throws him in the dumpster. Law enforcement finds out where that dumpster was emptied at the landfill, essentially, more or less. They have agents go out there. Guess how long agents search, knowing, at least pinpointing pretty much the area where this one little, in the scheme of things, in the scheme of a landfill that goes east-west, north-south, and deep, right? Both ways. North, south, east, west, and deep. They had some information regarding where essentially it would be. Guess how long the FBI took? I'm going to see if anybody knows this answer. They took 5 weeks to find Quentin Simon. The FBI ERT, evidence response team, lined up shoulder to shoulder, looking in this landfill, getting rid of one layer, then going to the next, then going to the next, going down into the ground. Finally, 5 weeks later, they found Quentin. Law enforcement in this case searched about a day. There is no way you're going to be able to conduct a landfill search for a day and have any chance in the world to find a body, to find evidence. No, it can't happen. You put the FBI, you ask the FBI, which the FBI would have done, you put the FBI's ERT out there, and maybe 5 weeks later, they would have been able to successfully comb through the area that, again, particular dumpster or dump that handled from that neighborhood. That's where they searched. It was in Kentucky. It was fresh, right? I guess this is 3/7, so already about, over a week. I just imagine all that trash in there, how hard. But
What do you all think about the landfill? Do you think that they spent enough time there? Do you think that they found what they found and left? His Eyes 7 says, question is, who is threatening people, and are these threats turned into the FBI? Because we all know Sumner County won't do anything. Yes, they are being turned in. Hi, Sunflowers, True Crime. Who's in Hendersonville area searching with? I'm trying to get to your questions real quick so far, and then I'll tell you. Oh, I heard that. Yes, I did. I'm going to write that down so I can go watch. Just another piece of evidence, right? Because let me explain something. If indeed that happened, hey, Annette, hey, NeuroV, Passion Flower, if indeed that happened, it is not normal for people to be searching for a missing child and be threatened, harmed, intimidated. That, again, is evidence. They are the evidence. Just like the interviews are the evidence. The people threatening people are the evidence, are some of the evidence. Because it isn't normal. It is not normal for a group of people, more than one even would be abnormal, but a group of people to stop, scare, intimidate, threaten people away from finding a child. Law enforcement sees it, they hear it, and they're watching it. Like I said, we are trusting in Seth that he has lines of communication open that he does not want anyone to affect right now. And if there's ever a time where the case goes cold and he wants something different for us, we're Sebastian's army and we'll be right on it, right? Because we're not going to let this go cold. This is not going cold. We will not allow it. We know too much has come forth, leaked out, been brought to our attention that there's no way we would let this ever go cold and Sebastian not be located and brought justice. But we have someone who is the father who is leading this team, and he is happy right now with the lines of communication that are open. So we're happy that they're communicating, right? As a matter of fact, I saw an interview with CP the other day, and he said something like, and it might be one we're about to watch, I think they had the Secret Service here early on, or I don't know if they're still here. So clearly there isn't communication there. Also, when SF had put on X about that ridiculous video at midnight, which I want to talk about too. Again, that ridiculous video, when he put that up there, what was I going to say? Why? Well, now I lost my train of thought, but why did he put that up there, and why was that the one video that we heard KP saying she needs answers about? Why, from law enforcement? That's what I was saying. SF saying, we need to know, law enforcement, have you confirmed who this person is? That another clue to us that they're not communicating with law enforcement. So Seth is, and we need the lines to stay open. So let's just hope that everything will go as we hope, and we locate Sebastian and there's justice and it doesn't go cold. But we will not allow it to go cold. So, but I wanted to go over a couple more things here. Where she says that when law enforcement came out on the March 3rd, or came out early on and said that the Proudfoots did not want to speak, told the media they could do what they wanted, but they were just letting them know they didn't want to speak. That's rare. We know that's rare. Sadly, though, we see it a lot in our missing children's cases. And what does it usually end up being when we see parents who don't talk? Trezell and Jacqueline West, they didn't talk. When they did, it was weird when they finally came out. But at first, nothing. They're behind bars. And I'm not saying that's always the case, but it's odd. And we see it as odd. Let's see. Oh, and she mentioned that about so many people not knowing still, and I will concur with that because I've mentioned it to friends in Texas, Utah, here in Arizona, Colorado, and they don't know about Sebastian. They do now from me, but they don't. So let me ask you this. If you're a parent and you know that people don't know about your missing child, what are you doing? Are you searching? Are you putting up flyers? Are you doing many, many, many more national media interviews, getting it out there? Whatever you can do. Are you going to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children website with all their ideas of what parents of missing children can do? Or are you just saying, oh, people don't know? That's the question. What's being done about it? Because when billboards go up, more people are going to know. But when you're married to someone who wants those to come down and he's angry about them, it's confusing. Let's see. I'm glad she brought up the Amber Alert again. Yes. The Amber Alert means a crime has been committed. Someone has been unlawfully taken against their will. Sumner County had to confirm to TBI that that was the case. In my opinion, they did it with footage. That's just my opinion. And then TBI had to evaluate it, approve it, and then if approve or disapprove, and if they approve it, then activate the alarm. And all that happened from 6:33, let's say, when dispatch was called on the 26th to 3:25, I believe she said, on the 27th. So early on, because it's not quick, right? It's not quick. It's a process. So for that to have gone on the 27th means they knew quite early on in order to get that process done, and at 3:25 p.m. on the 27th have that Amber Alert alerted, activated. So then it was on the 28th that the Proudfoots law enforcement told media Proudfoots were not talking. Wow. I wonder why. What would make you not want to talk when your child is missing? Evidence, my friend. It all becomes evidence, in my opinion. And then paying SF the $15,000 retainer that SF said he gets paid and not contributing to the reward. Now, I'm going to say this. I do realize that Seth doesn't have that extra income to do that, but he's putting in the blood, sweat, and tears. The other side, the mom and her husband have the means to contribute to a reward. They vacation, they have RVs, they have motorcycles, they have a beautiful home they were gifted the home in Gallatin. So when that was sold, they moved to this one. So they're doing fine. Why not put it forth to Sebastian? Again, all those little pieces need to be adding up. And we're all writing them down because we're keeping notes. That's why I'm saying let's start all taking good notes. Because if there ever comes a day when it gets cold, we're his army. We are Sebastian's army, right along Seth, doing everything we can. And we need everything we know at our fingertips. So we know where to look, where not to look, what, all of it. What to do, where to follow up.
I'm just saying it was a half-baked search because I know it's impossible to search and find a body under those conditions in a landfill in a day. Nevertheless, it shows us that there was at least probable cause to search that landfill, which shows me something that law enforcement believed was indicative of a crime having been committed. On 3/14, this was huge. It was the flashlight video leak, right? 3/14, that's big day. Nick Byers, he gets the video and he gets it from a neighbor and he leaks it. And law enforcement is not happy, right? Because, and I understand that, I would be livid because anyone with any common sense, a shred of common sense, realizes that is not a trash truck. I, to this day, don't exactly know what Seth and the Proudfoots were shown. Were they actually shown the lights video? I can understand why law enforcement would have tried to persuade them that it was a trash truck. I mean, Seth goes into great detail about it, actually. He says, listen, I saw the longer version and this and that. And, it was a trash truck. Don't worry about it. So I truly believe that's what Seth was told. And I think Seth passed that on. But unless a trash truck goes like this, these are the two lights. Light goes over here. Then this one goes over here, but it's hidden by shrubs and bushes for a little while, then comes out. And this one goes off screen. And they both go off screen. And then one scurries back. Let's say faster pace. We know Sebastian Rogers disappeared with his fidget toy flashlight on the key ring. Katie Proudfoot said that. Seth says it was kind of a fidget toy. He'd like to play with it. So I just, common sense and experience, there is no way that video isn't important. And the fact that out of all the things he's going to leave with, he's not leaving with his phone, his switch, a coat, a snack. He left with a flashlight, and we have these 2 lights, according to Nick Barris, is out at 3:10. That's what he says. He's putting his whole career in terms of being a capable journalist, and I know what others have said, but that would appear to be the time if we are to believe Nick Barris, which I believe him because I don't think he's going to lie. I don't think he's going to put his reputation out there to make up a time. I understand the clock was frozen. We've all seen this. We know it was frozen. But the bottom line is it's easy to backtrack. Mob Crew's done a great job of sort of putting all of that out there. The bottom line is that video is key and the crux to being able to solve the case, I believe. All right, on 3, I want to make sure I get the date right. I have 18. No, 3/28. The Proudfoots leave Hendersonville. Remember, this is when they load up and they leave and they say they felt threatened. And they say, listen, Chris Proudfoot went back to work. And many of us were bothered by that, right? We said, what mom leaves the nest when you have a chick that's off? You know, who does that? Who abandons the point that the child may return to logically if they get a chance? In other words, if they're abducted by somebody else, if they just ran away and were found by somebody, that they can go back to and say, listen, this is my address, this is my home, I need to go home, this is where I need to go home to. That's my opinion. You could threaten me, you could do whatever you want to me. I am not leaving my homestead with my child lost. Again, just a couple points. Oh, yes, let me point out too, he did not take his meds. He didn't take his meds with him. All right? No shoes, no meds, no coat, and not his favorite device. And for those of you who have gamers, I have gamers. I have one gamer. Oh my gosh, you know, that device is important to him to be able to game. All right. On 3/28, Seth comes out in the media. He says, listen, there were no dog scents related to Sebastian. And he talks about the details of that flashlight video. Again, he talks about the fact that, you know, law enforcement basically convinces him it's a trash truck. Okay. On 3/29, the Cajun Navy pulls out. And they pull out very specifically. They say, we're getting threatened. We are out of here. We're getting too many threats. We're out of here. And this is really a mainstay of the thread in this live that I want to bring home are all these threats. So they pull out, they leave. On 4/2, Craddock makes a presser. He's in charge from the Sumner County Sheriff's Office. At that time, he was the chief detective. Now we know he's the sheriff. And he basically says that they weren't working with the Cajun Navy anyway. He doesn't mention the FBI. He does say, you know, our law enforcement partners, he turns it over to the TBI, to Susan Nyland, who says there's 314 tips. There's no footage of Sebastian. There's no evidence of Sebastian. There's no evidence to support foul play. All the vehicles have been identified and accounted for. The parents have been cooperative. On a side note here, we know from the Proudfoots that they never came in and used luminol or anything. Essentially, at least on this date, by 3/4 I have. Wait a minute. Sorry, 4/4. We know that law enforcement is at least communicating that they believe the parents, that the parents aren't involved, that they've polygraphed Katie, didn't polygraph apparently Chris because they believed he was out of town. So at this point in the investigation a year ago, law enforcement is trying to say, listen, we believe the parents, at least that's what they're putting out there. And they're making it pretty clear, except they always caveat at this time, we're not saying there isn't foul play and no one's cleared. And that has been their messaging from day one, basically talking out of both sides of their mouths. Okay. Now then, we're going to go to April 26th, because we've got April 4th, now April 26th. That's when Heather Cohen, the former PI, comes out and says, we've got problems at home. And that's why we say, if you have a missing child, you must get a PI. You have to do it because they are going to unearth things that law enforcement may unearth, but they're not going to tell you. I mean, law enforcement basically is going to tell you very little. And that's for a reason. They're trying to keep the details of their investigation close to the vest because they don't want to spoil their case. They don't want to give any clues so that something goes in the media and they get a tip, for instance, at 3:10, he was abducted. I'm just saying this hypothetically. And they have no idea about the flashlight video being at 3:10. So this would be fresh information that law enforcement can say, okay, that video never got out. How would they know the exact time? So that's why law enforcement keeps everything close to the vest. But nevertheless, it's important to get a PI. They did. And the PI basically says, listen, there's trouble at home. First, we hear about the CPS reports, and now the whole thing, Sebastian's in diapers. Sebastian was beat by belt. Now we know 2 times because Chris Bradford talks about them. He's, again, on the spectrum, and I believe that's inappropriate. Like I said, are they involved in the abduction of Sebastian? We all sitting here don't have the evidence that could prove that beyond a reasonable doubt. Does law enforcement have it? We don't know, and we don't know to what degree they have evidence of this, if they have any evidence. But what we do have evidence of is his ill treatment. And I've always said that is what has infuriated me, is how bad he was treated. And it just galls me. But I don't want to digress. I want to keep with our timeline. On 4/28, April 28th, the Uvalde group, and Uvalde, remembered the shooting in Uvalde. They formed a group after that as kind of a support group, as an awareness group, as a group that helps with everything from missing children to other situations. And they came to help search. This is critical. And I've read this before, but some of you may have forgotten. The Uvalde group came out and they specifically said, and I think I have the quote. Let me see if I have the quote. If not, I'll have to paraphrase just a bit. But they said the Uvalde Foundation for Kids announced on April 18th, sorry, I said 28th, on April 18th, that it was ending its search efforts for Sebastian Rogers. The decision was made due to inappropriate messages tagged to their social media posts, threats, and increasing conviction amongst their team about the culpability of certain members of Sebastian's family in his disappearance. Pretty big. I remember when it came out, and I remember reading it thinking, wow, all right. Likely, obviously, they contacted law enforcement, and that was their belief. So they bugged out because basically they're saying, we're not going to find him, because they believe certain family members, they didn't say who, were culpable. All right. So they bug out. Again, that was April 18th, if you go to look for that. On August 28th, so there's this huge gap, right? May, June, July, August, we're finally at August. And what happens? The FBI comes out with a $50,000 reward. I've talked about this before. There's 2 different ways I've seen the FBI put out rewards. Sometimes family members, friends will put together a pool of money and give it to the FBI to actually make the announcement, to say it's from the Bureau. The Bureau kind of manages it, if you will. And they say, listen, call in tips. This is $50,000. And so that they can sort of be the judge of it, rather than a parent saying, I want to get $50,000, but they're not going to want to manage all the tips that come in and everything. So essentially, they are going to defer to the Bureau to look at the tips that come in and see if they are deserving of that money. But I'm going to tell you right now, rewards are offered when the tip pool has dried up. It's offered when you don't have anything else coming in, because you don't want to incite tips when people start thinking about money.
And that in itself is infuriating to me, because there was no communication from law enforcement from April 2nd. And then August 28th, the FBI comes out with the reward. And most likely because tips are dry. Because family members, we just discussed that. So they didn't, they have their toys, they have their big house, they have their reasons, but they didn't contribute to a reward. Seth's contributing in blood, sweat, tears, and everything else he's going through, doing, screaming at the rooftops. But so, very interesting. So that means they were out of leads. It was dry, in my opinion. Now, I'm going to say, when you have law enforcement from April 2nd, you don't hear a thing from them. And TBI, who's supposed to be keeping Sebastian's face information out there to the media, not even if you don't have investigative, that wasn't happening. I worry, that wasn't happening. And it was going cold. And I believe, in my opinion, it would have, if At Night and Dog had not come in to help Seth. And they got everyone looking at it, realizing that it was, others were looking for Sebastian. There was a strong team, national awareness because of Dog's far reach and celebrity status. So I think that's why we got this. It didn't go cold back then, but we're not going to let it go cold. We are not.
Money, you don't want to incite that unless you have to, and they needed to. So $50,000 reward. And then we know on September 19th, Dog the Bounty Hunter, he gets involved, and he utilizes his money. He hooks up with Nick the Hat and others, an investigative crew, to try to basically handle tips that are not being handled by law enforcement for whatever reason. I've gone over this before. Some people want to be anonymous. They don't trust law enforcement. They want to have some place to call. So they call Dog the Bounty Hunter. He's got a line open. I mean, Dog the Bounty Hunter has been around forever. He has literally like 600,000 plus followers on Twitter, and I'm sure on many other platforms. He is well known, and he was bounty hunter, for heaven's sake. So while he might not exactly be the boots on the ground, he is offering his face and name and funds to support this. So now we have a huge fund of over $200,000. I think it's up to like 225,000 or more if he's found. Okay, on December 7th, we have that. Again, September 7th, commemorating, of course, Sebastian. On 12/13, the leaked In other words, Dog and the crew, they leak that video. They get the video from the roadhouse for the first time. Everybody sees it. And, that's huge when that came out, I think, for a lot of people. So just for those that don't think that he is, that they're doing anything, I could just tell you it's wrong. They are. They're constantly out fishing around for following these tips they receive. They call them into the sheriff's office when it's appropriate, and they're working. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. Specifically, I want to get into the good news before we hit the bad news, right? Let's do the good news first. The good news first is that there is actually billboards, many billboards that Dog and his group have recently put up. Okay. I want to specifically go over those. Here we go. I want to tell you where these are. They have billboards up showing Sebastian's face and Summer's case, offering a $447,000 reward in Montgomery, Alabama, Columbia, Tennessee, another one in Columbia, another one in Troy, Alabama, another one in Dothan, Alabama, another one in Dixon, Tennessee, another one in Apelka, Alabama, another one in Holly Springs, Mississippi. These again show both faces. Another one off of Ives Dairy Road in, let's see, in Wells Springs. So they're all over in Mississippi. Literally dozens of these in Toluma, in Nashville, in Antioch, Madison. These are all the Tennessees. Madison, La Verne, Nashville, Antioch, more in La Verne, more in Madison, 5 in Madison, more in Nashville. They're working, guys, with all of these billboards. And billboards are huge because, again, we know that the name and the face and everything of Sebastian fades. And to have these billboards there, I think, is critically important. So I wanted to give you the good news. That is good news, that these billboards are up. But I also want to give you the bad news. And the bad news is that people continue to be threatened. I tell you, I couldn't believe it in the case involving Bullhorn Betty. She is, the Proudfoots are seeking a protective order against her. Bullhorn Betty they're in litigation. And the judge involved in that case was threatened. I mean, the list of people threatened in this thing, the mom's been threatened, the father's been threatened, the stepfather's been threatened, the grandparents have been threatened, a judge has been threatened, Nick has been threatened, the dog has been threatened, probably a lot more people that I don't even know about, but those for sure. This is a missing child case, for heaven's sakes. Can people focus, if they spent the amount of time they're spending on threatening, out there organizing search groups, trying to continue to look. I understand that this is criminal. I understand he could be anywhere. But to do something involving putting up flyers, putting up posters, using your social media to say his face and say his name and show his face, that's really productive. It really is. And I just hope that somehow we can get back on track and switch to productively trying to figure out what happened to Sebastian, while law enforcement behind the scenes is doing what they need to do to likely try to prove a case. Everybody else needs to be forging ahead with posters, name, and doing productive work and the threats have got to end. All right, let's see. Really quick, Ellie has said again, no one is clear. I know, I saw the video where Chris Proudfoot said, I'm clear, Katie's clear. According to law enforcement, no one's clear. Seth has said he's not clear, Katie's not clear, Chris isn't clear. They're not clearing anybody. Let's see. All right, I'm going to look at some questions.
Hey, I think Jen did a really good job of taking us from beginning to where we are now. And no one's cleared. I still am shocked about not wanting the billboards up. And here's the reason why. First of all, the explosion was shocking. Second of all, those billboards are not speaking to anyone but someone with knowledge, guilt, or involvement. Those billboards don't bother, shouldn't, most people won't understand them. And there's the only people it's supposed to cause that kind of a reaction to are the people who are trying to locate who know what happened to Sebastian. So it is very odd, in my opinion, to see that kind of reaction wanting those billboards down. Because there's no reason. What do you care if it says, I cried, you lied? You know, who took me? Did you make me vanish? Okay, that's going to eat away at the people, just like the riddles. Remember the riddles that Nick used to put out? We used to try and figure them out, and why don't we know what this means? Because it wasn't for us. Remember, we talk about that. There is someone who knows what it means, and it's the people who are involved, who they're speaking to, and that's exactly what the billboards are. So that reaction was, again, I'm telling you, the narrative is has been sloppy, adding things, omitting things, explosions over certain things. When someone explodes over something, look at it. The truck, the billboards are eating away at him. Instead of thinking, look how many people are seeing Sebastian's face. It's not normal, in my opinion. It isn't. We are going to go ahead and continue, and I'm going to read now. Jen brought up, let me just get out there a little bit. We've had a lot of things leaked, like the Texas Roadhouse footage that showed a lot about the relationship, or at least that night, the tension, it seemed, or the lack of interaction. We've heard from Seth in the family counseling pages. One thing he told us is that, why does a mother not interact in the home with their child, and that breaks my heart. But we saw it in the Texas Roadhouse footage, right? And that Heather Cohen in April 26th said there's problems in the family. And CPS reporting, came out, knowledge of that Sebastian wore diapers at their house, pull-ups, and not at Seth's. Just very strange things started emerging. And I'm still telling you, when you go on that first interview or whatever, and you say that he is mentally on 3-3, your first ever interview on YouTube, and you say Sebastian's mental capability is behind his years, that's the first interview you've ever done, you have misrepresented intentionally, in my opinion, because KP explained in the 1-year anniversary that in all the chaos of getting information out, it was misrepresented. Sebastian's capabilities were misrepresented, but she waited till the year anniversary to do an interview and correct that. But I don't buy it. I just don't buy it, because you would have been out there right away. So that 3-3 interview where they said he's younger than his mental capability is younger than his years. That's intentional. That wasn't chaos. That was 8 days, 7, 8 days down the road. Why would you do that? Again, that's evidence. Those things, every little piece and every little sentence and every little interview and panel visit adds to the collection of circumstantial evidence, in my opinion. Patterns, routines. Remember, law of normal can be used and admissible in court. We're going to go ahead and go over the Dateline interview, which is the last interview that KP did. And it is a written article. So I find it interesting because she's very verbose, very verbal. But yet in front of the cameras, it's hard to get that out. So we hear a lot more. Very interesting, a lot of new information in this Dateline. So grab your notebooks, get your pen. Write down the things that you notice are not mentioned and things that are added. One thing I'll tell you that is added is, hey, dude, wake up. Not kidding. Let me go ahead and pull it up for you. Sorry, I'm trying to find it. You can see what it's titled. One moment. I know I pulled it up. Did I close it? Okay, let me pull up the NBC article because I do want to read that together. I really thought I had that. I do. There we go. Okay. This came out April 3rd. Shortly after the 1-year mark of February 26th. So this is a written article. Dateline interviewed KP. Can you all see it? Just want to make sure you can see it. Okay. And I will go through it, see what's omitted, and I'll be right in that. Ask you what you noticed. Katie Proudfoot recalls the evening of Sunday, February 25th as a typical one at home. Hold on one second. In Hendersonville, Tennessee, her 15-year-old son, Sebastian Rogers, got ready for bed around 9 p.m., said I love you to his mom and his 2 dogs, and then headed to his bedroom for the night. Katie remembers hearing a noise come from Sebastian's room at 10 p.m. I hollered out to him and he answered me, Katie said. I didn't think a whole lot of it. About an hour later, Katie went to bed. So Katie's in bed at 11 p.m. now. So 9 p.m., Sebastian's in bed. 10 p.m.'s the noise. She didn't think a whole lot out of it and he answered her. 11 p.m., she's in bed now. It's not midnight anymore, which shortens that phone call, which originally we were told was 3 hours. So now that phone call, which was about 9:40 to 9:45, because it then went to 2 hours and like 15 minutes. Now we're at about an hour and 15, 20 minutes. Okay, for that 3-hour phone call. About an hour later, Katie went to bed. She had no idea her life would be very different in the morning. In Monday morning, Katie went to her son's room. It was about 6 a.m. I went to wake him up for school. Katie said I went in his room and I was like, dude, time to get up. That's new. Normally, he will like turn and look, and he didn't. And I realized he wasn't in his bed. Now, here's another question. 6 a.m. is twilight there. Did you turn on a light to see he didn't turn and look? Was it, did you turn on a light to start searching? It wasn't daylight yet. And I realized he wasn't in bed. The following moments are every parent's worst nightmare. I looked everywhere in and around the house and I couldn't find him. I checked his bathroom. Remember, Nancy Grace asked, do you feel confident his bathroom was thoroughly checked? Now out it comes into the narrative. Nancy doesn't ask anything without a reason. Now it's in the narrative. I checked his bathroom and he wasn't in there. And I was like, okay, well, maybe he went to the kitchen. Maybe he got up before me. And so I went through the house. And when I didn't see him is when I started to panic a little bit. Katie said, I ran through like literally every area of the house, everywhere. And that's when I really started to panic. Katie says she jumped in her car and began driving around the neighborhood. Katie also called her husband, Chris, Sebastian's stepfather, who was out of town on a business trip at the time. It's like terror, Katie told Dateline. What happened? Where did he go? Now, the narrative has been that within 1 to 3 minutes, she was on the phone with Chris. This is kind of vague here. I was in my car and I stopped and I asked one of the ladies walking her dog. And she was like, no, I haven't seen him. And it really started to kick in at that point. That's also new. The lady walking the dog that she talked to, and that can be easily proved by all the Ring cameras or her dash cam. Or the lady in the neighborhood who lives there to say, yes, that occurred. I'm wondering though, is that damage control because videos were released or a picture was released of her driving around with her window up? I don't know. Katie says then she headed to Sebastian's school and got on a 3-way call with Chris and the Sumner County Sheriff's Office. So now she's on the phone, getting on a call. They're just getting on that 3-way call. By the time she got there, she was told to turn around and head home because law enforcement was headed to their house. I have a serious problem with this. She said she went right up to the school to look for him. CP even said when Elevated Truth said, why would she go up to the school? Well, why wouldn't she look for her son up there? He goes there. It's not her son, his son. Now, there's cameras there. Now we're hearing is when we got as I arrived, by the time she got there, she was told to turn around. So KP didn't look around at the school. She did not look there. That's different. Does the truth change? You can't look around at a school and also have it be when I got there, I was told to turn around, right? Because she's probably, in my opinion, that could be concerned for what the cameras caught. It was just like more and more people were coming and everyone was looking, and every time someone came back and they didn't have him, Katie couldn't finish the thought. Sebastian is on the autism spectrum. You wouldn't recognize him as special needs person just by looking at him. Excuse me. He is smart, capable, and functional, but he does have areas that he struggles in. Katie told Dateline that Sebastian does respond differently in certain situations. He does have sensory issues with loud noises, but we didn't tell them that when they were blasting that music either. Specifically like spontaneous ones, so he does avoid sudden loud noises. He also hates bugs and would avoid any area where he saw one, according to his mother. Sebastian loves water. What Sebastian loves is water, and Sebastian swims like a fish. Okay, Sebastian hates bugs and would avoid any area where he saw one. Does that align with a child that would go out in bare feet at night where he couldn't see if he was stepping on a bug or not? I don't think so. What do you think? In any area. Also, sensory these would have sensory issue with loud noises and spontaneous loud noises. Smart, capable, functional, functional, just has areas he struggles in. So very different than he is much in his mental capacity is much younger than his years. That is very different. You wouldn't recognize him as a special needs person. Very different information here. The search efforts for Sebastian were immediate and intense. This is a very large-scale response, Sheriff Eric Craddock of the Sumner County Sheriff's Office told Dateline via email. Craddock directed Dateline to the TBI newsroom for more information. That morning, the Sumner County Sheriff's Office issued a missing persons report to begin efforts to locate Sebastian. A TBI endangered child alert was pushed out and was then elevated to a statewide Amber Alert. All because that's a crime. So they knew within a day the crime had been committed. Due to the Sebastian's love of water, pools in the neighborhood were searched. Dive teams were brought in, and bodies of water around the neighborhood and beyond that area were searched, including caves. In his email to Dateline, Sheriff Craddock elaborated on what resources were used in the search for Sebastian. Everything. Foot, canine, drone, air assets, fixed wing and helicopter, horse-mounted patrol, USAR, resources from across the state and federal government assisted with the case. He wrote, the search during the week he went missing was extremely large scale. The sheriff's office even employed some unconventional search methods in its attempt to locate Sebastian. Notably, they encouraged those participating in the search to play Sebastian's favorite music in an attempt to draw him out. This advice was called in by a citizen. I tried and I will continue to try to bring resolution to this case. And this is everywhere they searched. Look at that. A young man with no shoes on. How could he have gotten past that? No coat, no shoes. He had a head start allegedly, but there's no scent of him leaving. 5 dogs, no hits. 5 dogs, no hits for Sebastian scent. So what do you all think about what was added? We've never heard before that she stopped and spoke to a neighbor walking their dog, or that when she arrived at the school, right as she arrived, she was told to turn around and leave. No, we were told she went up there to look for him. She looked for him up there. Bedtime's now 11 p.m., no longer midnight for KP. So we're looking at, remember the 9 to 12 call became 9:40 to 9:46 to be full and transparent and all that. And all law enforcement has the call logged, all agencies, and vetted and logged. Well, that went from 9:45 to midnight because they said, oh, it's not 9, it's 9:45, 45 to midnight. So then it became 2 hours, 20 minutes. Now we are at 9:45 to 11. KP went to bed an hour earlier. That's an hour and 20-minute phone call. Not 3 hours. She mentions the bathroom, looking in the bathroom. We have never heard that before. And I remember Nancy Grace, when we watched it again as a family, I caught the second time where she said, do you feel confident they searched the bathroom or something? I thought that was an odd question, but Aunt Nancy does not say things without a reasoning. So I'm sure she finds it very interesting that now KP has added the bathroom to her Dateline article. Believe me, that didn't get by. Whatever reasoning Nancy had to ask that question, she probably got her answer when KP added it to the Dateline narrative, the bathroom check. And we had not heard that before. And difference about when she got on, kind of vague about when she got on the phone with Chris in the first place. So I wonder if that's because of call logs. I don't know. But now it's not right away within 1 to 3 minutes. I was on with him the whole time when I got in the car. Remember, she told Nancy Grace. Now it's kind of sounds a little different in my opinion. Very different. See what you all are saying. A woman's warrior said, I would have loved to have been on the fly on the wall when they were shown the flashlight video. I wonder if they managed to keep composure. Who, the law enforcement, while they were saying it was a trash truck? CC says they may have showed Seth a real trash truck video that was manipulated, but the video Nick showed was the flashlights clearly. Could be, yes. They changed the subject when you mentioned flashlights. Yes. Yes. Hi, Little Red. NeuroV, can you email me with the make? And I can look at that too. Magic Star says, Little Red, in my opinion, the biggest takeaway from the Texas Roadhouse video is the interaction between KP and Sebastian. The obvious tension feels like a clue considering KP claims it was such a fun day. Oh, great point. That's right. It was typical. It was normal. He was in a good mood. We got along. Everyone was happy. CP said KP called the Cajun Navy to help, and Cajun Navy said Seth contacted them. The Proudfoots, in your opinion, are liars. It's like being shipwrecked on Gilligan's Island. No boat, no light, no motor car, not a single luxury, like Robinson Crusoe. It's primitive as can be. Karen Powers, that's funny. You know, well, you know, it just, none of it makes sense. And now here we are in April, in April, the beginning of April, the 14th month, and we're hearing different things again. And so again, it's a sloppy narrative, and that in itself will be evidence. We just need to get enough, that piece they're missing. Right? Let's go ahead and watch the one interview with Deception Detective of the two of them together. And then we'll see how we're feeling afterwards, okay? This is the 1 year mark anniversary where CP has on the Pig Fest shirt. It's kind of very awkward to me. Interview. So let's go ahead and watch Deceptive Detective. He is an attorney, by the way, who is trained in statement analysis. Got a little bit of a cold starting, sore throat. There we go. I think this is the one. Let me go to it and I'll show you the different one. Let me make sure this is the one where they're both in it. Are they both in this one? Yes, okay. Okay, this is credit to Deception Detective.
Let him become lost in the next story, not to supersede other children because they all deserve just as much, if not more attention, because all children do. But I would say just please don't let him become forgotten. Don't let him become lost in the next story, not to supersede other children because they all deserve just as much, if not more attention, because all children do. But I would say just please don't let him become forgotten and lost, because we're never gonna stop. We're never gonna let that happen if we can help it.
That's Katie Proudfoot, and I don't think she actually wants to find her missing son, Sebastian Rogers. It's not just because of statements like that where she literally asked us to prioritize other children over her own son, or the fact that she's talking about him like he's already passed away when he's only been missing for a year. No, it's also because of how she and her husband, Chris Proudfoot, treat the people who are actually trying to find Sebastian. So in today's video, let's continue watching their most recent TV interview, and I'll show you what I mean. I'm Deception Detective and attorney trained in statement analysis. This channel exposes lies and manipulation. So if that's your thing, hit like and subscribe. For early access to new videos, exclusive videos, and other cool perks, consider becoming a channel member. Link in description. If you missed my earlier episodes breaking down the first part of this interview, don't worry, I'll link them at the end. For now, the main gist is Sebastian Rogers is an autistic teen who disappeared about a year ago. In the interview we're going to analyze is his biological mother, Katie, who was last seen with him alive, and his stepfather, Chris Proudfoot, who was apparently out of town when he went missing. All right, let's pick up where we left off with them telling the interviewer about a video that recently surfaced which might show Sebastian sneaking away the evening he supposedly went missing.
You were determined to get to the bottom of this, to get to the bottom of that video.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything that could possibly be something that could lead us to him. We're going to keep looking. We're going to keep digging and keep finding and confirm if it is or isn't, because I mean, if it's possible, then it's got to be confirmed.
How hopeful are you that this video truly has something that could lead to finding Sebastian?
I pray that if there is anything even remotely in it that could help us find Sebastian, I pray that it is I don't know how to word it, but it's followed up and found out and confirmed one way or the other, because, you know, I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the video. I know it's in it. It actually gives us more rejuvenated hope that we may actually be onto something. We just have to run it down. We've got to figure this out. And with law enforcement doing what they can, and with the help of like TBI, the FBI, all of that. I mean, I believe Secret Service was involved in the beginning. Maybe they can look at this video as well. Let's bring people back to the table.
Very interesting. So I find that interesting that this video they're so focused on. It's not the flashlight video. They didn't want that brought forth, or any of the other stuff, but this is important. This they want checked. Bulletin board or billboards, excuse me, want them down. I find it doesn't make sense. Want the billboards down. Don't make this get any bigger. What are you going to do if this goes south? Never had this kind of conviction for the flashlight video, for the Texas Roadhouse video, watching it, asking for, confirmation. Is anyone in there? We've never heard any of that about any of that. It's this one video. And you know what it makes me think? And I'm not accusing anyone. I'm just thinking of from my observations from how they interview and how CP talks. It makes me think that that's because this is the one video that doesn't even show anything no one needs to see. There, I said it. Let's move on. In my opinion, allegedly.
And let's exercise every possibility of enhancing this video, looking at whatever, and tackling what it is to get an answer.
It sounds like Chris wants all the help he can get analyzing that video, but his actions say otherwise. As I said in the intro, the Proudfoots say they want help, but when someone actually helps them, it's a different story. The best known example of this, of course, is Dog the Bounty Hunter, who volunteered his services, but has only been met with resistance from the Proudfoots. But when it comes to the video, there actually is someone on YouTube who's been breaking down all the videos related to this case in great detail. And that is YouTuber Mob Crew. And just like Dog the Bounty Hunter and everyone else who's been working for free to try to figure out what happened to Sebastian, Chris isn't very grateful. In fact, here's the thanks Mob Crew got from Chris on a live stream not long ago.
You know what? I even went in and told Mob Crew that when he was sitting there talking all that, there was a whole bunch of shit he was saying. I can't remember what all he said, but I went in there and said, well, if you really want to know that bad, why don't you go in there? Why don't you go ask him? He's got no problem speaking to you.
Well, I got Mob Crew a better one. You want to You want to look at your videos very carefully and you want to get them done correctly, get off your damn computer and bring your ass down here and come find me. And I'll walk with you on every part of this road and walk with you on every part of your video. I got no problem with it. But when you sit behind a damn keyboard and you do the shit that you're doing, you play with fire, you're liable to get burned. You might want to reconsider some of the things he's doing right now, because he potentially may have a bigger issue down the road.
Some thanks, huh? And the way that the Proudfoots ask for help, but then refuse it when they actually get it, is part of a bigger sign of a hoax, and that is contradictions. In other words, when you're telling the truth, everything adds up and makes sense because you want help, so you're cooperating when you get it. But if you're pretending, you know you need to ask for help, but when someone comes along who can actually figure out the truth, it's not in your interest to cooperate. And therein lies the contradiction. But as we listen on, you'll see that there's plenty of smaller contradictions in their story too.
Let's bring people back to the table, and let's exercise every possibility of enhancing this video, looking at whatever, and tackling what it is to get an answer.
Now, this is your chance to respond, to speak out, to speak your mind, whatever it is that you want to say. But you know, no matter what the story is, there are always people who will point fingers. What do you want to say to anyone out there who wants to say that one of you could have something to do with Sebastian's disappearance?
I would say to pause and to think, and I would say to consider the sources of information. Try to make sure that you're getting legitimate information. Avoid the rumors. And I would say that everyone should pause and remember why we all came together in the first place. And that is because Sebastian's missing, and because I'd like to believe that we all want to find him. And no matter what anyone's personal opinion is, that the most important thing still remains, that Sebastian needs to be found and Sebastian needs to come home. And I would just say thank you to everyone and anyone that is a part of that.
Well, Katie, you're welcome. Remember, she was answering a question about people like me, people who say that she has something to do with Sebastian's disappearance. But besides thanking me, I also like the fact that she didn't say I'm wrong or that I'm lying or I'm mistaken, nor did she say that she and Chris are innocent, or even that they didn't have anything to do with Sebastian's disappearance, which I would have expected her to say if that were the case. Typically, when people are falsely accused of something, they say that their accusers are wrong or they're mistaken. But if you're actually guilty, saying that might not even occur to you in the first place.
And I would just say thank you to everyone and anyone that is a part of that.
So let's say Sebastian is listening when this is running, and he hears you, he sees you. What do you want to say to him?
I would say that I love you so very much, and that I hope that you're okay. And I would say that know that we all love you, and that there are so many people that care and so many people that are looking, and hang in there and know that we're going to find you, know that we're going to bring you home. Just, I miss him so much.
So at this point, it's keep searching. People keep looking.
Keep searching, keep looking. We keep putting up new flyers. I know a lot of places, they take them down after so long. We just keep going back and putting more up. I refer to my original request just to anyone that's willing. Don't don't let him become forgotten. Don't let him become lost in the next story, not to supersede other children because they all deserve just as much, if not more attention, because all children do. But I would say just please don't let him become forgotten and lost, because we're never gonna stop. We're never gonna let that happen if we can help it.
As I said in the intro, Katie speaks about Sebastian as if he's already dead, as if the best we can do is keep his memory alive. Even when she was addressing Sebastian directly at the interviewer's prompting, by the way, she was speaking in platitudes, hang in there, we love you, rather than giving urgent, concrete advice just in case he literally is watching. Like, Sebastian, if you're watching this, call 911. Mommy and daddy are looking for you. Or, Sebastian, if you're out there, we're sorry if we did anything that made you run away. We forgive you for everything. We'll make it up to you. Just please come back home. In fact, when Katie was talking about hanging up posters, she wasn't even asking other people to hang up posters. She seemed more concerned about telling us that she and Chris are out there hanging up posters. In other words, she was more concerned about communicating to us that they're actively looking for him rather than actually soliciting help from other people to find him, which might even be an example of over-persuasion, or someone who has a guilty conscience and feels the need to prove something that usually just goes unsaid.
With his autism, is there anything else that we should add that you want the public to know right now?
I would say that he is what they would consider high functioning. He's not, he doesn't struggle with verbal communication, but he does, he does struggle sometimes with expressing himself, is, I guess, the best way that I could put that. But he's so smart, and he's so capable, and that I think the initial image of him that was portrayed was misleading to an extent. And I think that in the chaos of trying to get the initial information about him out, that various things got taken and misconstrued. So I would just tell everyone that he's smart, he's capable, he's funny, he's able to speak to you and to recognize things. He's a teenager, and so he's a young man. Honestly, he just had a birthday, and I'm sure that his mustache is coming in more. I mean, he really is a good kid.
I do tend to agree with Deception Detective. I hadn't noticed that, but right there where she says he is really a good kid and looks down, it's almost like she's reminiscing, in my opinion. He brings up some really good points, though. She's saying it was misconstrued, but it was deliberately out of her mouth on March 3rd in the Duchess interview. We just watched Coffendacker pointed it out, where they said, I'm not sure which one of them said it or the two of them together, that Sebastian's mind or mental capability was below his years. So that is not, in my opinion, an initial portrayal. The image was misconstrued. We were listening to the mother of the missing child. That's very, very frustrating, in my opinion, when people are looking, and sadly, that's very, very disappointing, in my opinion. And I agree with him. It's almost like when she's saying, please don't let him be forgotten or lost. That makes me really sad. His perspective is, it's like she's trying to keep the memory alive. That I hadn't looked at it like that. So, very good perspectives from Deception Detective. Full credit to him. Let's continue. There's just a couple minutes left.
What do you miss most about your son?
Oh, God. I miss his smile. I miss his laugh. I miss going and doing fun things with him. I miss taking him to get a haircut and him saying, "Mom, feel my head." I miss cooking dinner with him. I miss game nights. He would play Uno until the sun came up if you let him. You know, he goes through phases of which games he's into, but, you know, I miss him. I miss everything about him, the good, the bad. I miss his attitude. I miss, you know, him trying to eat all the sweets instead of dinner. I miss him stealing my Brussels sprouts while I'm trying to cook them.
I sense lots of joy that's being missed right now.
Green tea.
His jokes, the way he laughs when he tells a
I
funny.
don't like analyzing innocent parents. And one of the main reasons is how manipulative they are. They tug at your heartstrings by talking about their kid as weak, vulnerable. If you saw my video, What Do Innocent Parents Look Like? You'll know that Landon Bullard, the mother of Gannon Stouch, talked about him when he was a baby. And the reason for that is because they want to inspire some emotion in the people listening to them so that they might just help. That was a clip from my video analyzing Desiree Young, the mother of missing child Kyron Hormone. And it's actually pretty illustrative because Katie did the exact opposite of what Desiree did. Rather than telling us about how urgent it is to find Sebastian and how weak he is or vulnerable, instead she told us that he's a teenager who is starting to grow a mustache. If I were a volunteer and I had to decide where to allocate my time and resources, would I choose to help Kyron Horman, who sounds like he really needs the help and it's very urgent, or Sebastian Rogers, who his mother painted as pretty capable of handling himself and may have possibly run away? After all, he's a 16-year-old with hormones and a mustache. I think the answer is clear. In fact, the answer is so clear, I wonder if this is yet another subtle attempt from Katie to push searchers and volunteers onto other cases and to simply move on from Sebastian. Let them get along with their lives. Quit prying into them. Fortunately for Sebastian and unfortunately for the Proudfoots, I don't think my audience has any interest in moving along anytime soon. If you want to continue analyzing this interview,
I don't think my audience wants to move on either. That's interesting perspective too that he has, the subtle attempt to push people away by bringing up a mustache and hormones and things. Very interesting. You know, another thing I always think of is when they were giving that full description of Sebastian, why didn't they say he wears pull-ups? If there's nothing wrong with what you're doing and you think there's nothing wrong with what you're doing, why wouldn't you say, by the way, they won't find underwear. I hate to bring this up. It sounds terrible, you know, whatever, but it would be pull-ups. He's still in pull-ups. If you didn't do something wrong, why wouldn't you mention that? If you don't think something's wrong with having them in pull-ups, I mean, you would be forthcoming with that. He has autism. Sometimes he has accidents. He's in pull-ups, but that wasn't mentioned either. So I find it very, very interesting, this interview. Did you all find it interesting? I did, how quiet CP was in this interview. I see it two ways. You may see it in different ways because this is entertainment purposes only, in my opinion, speculation. I see it two ways for why he was quiet. One, because he's getting nervous, and I think his explosion the other day and then the argument in the courthouse parking lot is showing that, and the sheriff at the door. I think it all is rattling him. Or he's heard people say he's trying to control the narrative. But I don't see him as someone trying to please other people. Again, that's my perspective. So I take it as he's nervous, so he doesn't want to speak. He has no problem speaking. normally. This is a local, he was nervous on Nancy Grace too. But on the panels, it's a different individual, in my opinion. We hear the F word, the C word, the B word, the you name it word. Challenging dog and Hong and Nick and, you name it. And then saying, take the billboards down. So it's different persona. And again, the narrative's getting sloppy. We're down to an hour and 20 minutes on that phone call. That police allegedly logged, all agencies, according to CP, logged that 3-hour phone call and vetted it. Well, it's an hour and 20 minutes now, according to this new 11 o'clock bedtime. So we have, in my opinion, and we're going to keep going through some things. We are. But in my opinion, I think that we're going to go through all the interviews and keep trying to look for certain things. I want to show you the interview with the PI, Heather, next. Because that actually, it was very telling. But after I processed it for a while, it actually broke my heart. Excuse me. It actually broke my heart because the elusiveness, the games with the timeline were being verbalized right before our ears. We didn't have to surmise it. We didn't have to infer. It was right there. When the private eye was trying to get timelines and information, she'd say, well, was it this time? Sure. And apparently, 9 to 12 now is the noise was from 9 to 12, by the way, according to CP and that. So we're going to listen to that together. But it broke my heart because I thought this was way back from the beginning. They've muddied the narrative intentionally. And I felt that, but it's right there in that conversation. As a matter of fact, as the PI is trying to get information from the very mother who was there last with the child, CP butts in and says, well, what do you know? Tell us what you know. Tell us what Seth told you and we'll try and fill in blanks. Unbelievable. Instead of just letting KP talk about what she knew. So it really broke my, now I am telling you, that interview is evidence, in my opinion. If this goes to court, which I pray it does and will, we have to have hope, that is going to be played. Absolutely, in my opinion. It was trying to, not provide a timeline. Oh, I'll plug in pieces. Well, KP's the ones there. You don't plug in the pieces, you provide them. So it's very disconcerting. Very disconcerting. And that's what Seth Rogers has been up against this whole time. So, and now that's what all of us are up against. But the billboards are getting to him. It shouldn't be. I don't understand it. So now it makes me scratch my head even more. Is there anyone else that the billboards are bothering? Do you know what I wanted to add real quick? First of all, tomorrow night we're going to do a video on the hoax. Because as deception detective, forgive me, I have a hard time saying that sometimes, says, is that it's when you have conflicting statements is when it reveals a hoax. So we are going to go through some of the conflicting statements revealing a hoax. Now, I'm sure law enforcement has done this already. I'm sure law enforcement sees every piece. That PI interview, oh my goodness. We're going to listen to that too. That's going to be how we'll open it tomorrow, and then we'll go into the conflicting statements revealing an alleged hoax. Don't forget the virtual vigil this Saturday, 14 months missing for Sebastian Rogers. Seth is going to open the prayer. It's going to be a time for us to gather, breathe, de-stress, think about Sebastian, why we're here, all the children who need our attention. Come together in unity as a community and just take a breath for a second. And I hope you'll join me in being there. I think it's going to be a positive night. Not night, it won't be a whole night, but a positive hour. I think it's important for us to say, this is why we're here. This is what matters. The truth matters, though, and we won't allow people playing games with the truth because children's lives matter. And I'll be darned if we're going to tolerate someone saying, well, here's what I'll tell you. How about this? From 9 to 12, we heard a noise. There was a noise. He didn't say we. Okay? That's baloney. And that shows intent to muddy an investigation into the disappearance of a child. And if someone has intent, we have to ask ourselves, why would they do that? Why wouldn't they let the wife sitting next to him be specific? He's telling her, don't add anything. Don't, it's terrible. We're going to listen to it tomorrow. And you will see that it's a discussion, and it is, in my opinion, an absolute revealing of a hoax, a hiding. When you can't even tell someone times. Sure, that sounds good. 9 to 12, how about that? I'll fill in the pieces. What did Seth tell you? What do you know? We need to get moving on this. I want to see the grand jury. I do, but we need to wait till they have every piece so they get an indictment. We do not want Casey Anthony and O.J. Simpson walking around again. Everyone hit that subscribe notification bell. Don't forget about the vigil Saturday, thinking of, remembering our goal with Sebastian at 14 months and all the missing children. We need to stay focused, stay out of the hate, the drama, keep going. We're all they have. They're blessed to have a community with this many people who can put in their time, their talent, and their effort. So let's do it. Let's do better. Let's keep keeping on. And I will see you all tomorrow. We're going to keep looking for the little breadcrumbs, studying the golden nuggets, and maybe we will find that piece. Let's bring Sebastian home, Summer home, and all the kids home. And no longer can we tolerate people obstructing the search for children. Talk soon, my friends. Have a wonderful evening. Blessings to you all. And thank you for everything.